Just my friend here. All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to a random bonus episode. So today, it's a long weekend. My name is Shannon and I am filming on the 4th of July today. Since I had a little bit of extra time and it's the middle of the month, I thought that I would do a little bit of a episode all about yarn. This is not necessarily about projects I'm doing or going to do, but it also very much is. So there's definitely been a big trend lately about people trying to eliminate stash or stash down. And that's kind of one of those, I'm not a minimalist, so while I understand why that works for other people, I'm not somebody who desperately wants less yarn, but I do want to make sure I'm intentional with my yarn buying. So my goal for the year was to try to use a lot of what I already have and try to make sure if I am buying more, it is not always just because it's pretty, but with the intention of using it and not letting it just have the stash build and build and build until I can never work it all, because I may already be at that point. I've definitely seen people who counted how many skeins of yarn were in their stash as they were trying to stash down. I cannot do that because then that would have to be admitting how much stash I have. So instead, I'm just trying to track this year how much yarn I brought in, how much yarn is going out. Ideally, I would have more yarn go out than come in, but sometimes that's just not what's going to happen because I do also enjoy buying yarn. So, with that long rambling explanation, I have 3 little tools here to talk about my yarn today. I have my yarn log, my project book, and a bag filled with the labels of what I have worked on so far this year. And I figured we would sit here and talk a little bit about what I have bought, what I have used, and what I have purchased, not used, but am most excited about using right now as well. So, starting to get into it. Again, I did not do a count of what was in my stash at the beginning of the year. This has just been things that are going in and are going out. This is not a comprehensive log of what I have. I have had yarn in my collection for a very, very long time. I'm aware that I have some that has been in my collection for at least 15 years. Since a little after I started knitting. At some point I need to do something with that. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So this is not a comprehensive list. This is just kind of what came in and out. And each month I had my little log. I know it's not easy to read here, where I logged everything coming in, everything going out, and I've been kind of keeping a little bit of a running of net in, net out. So in January, is when quite a few big labels went out. And that would be a lot of these. Oh, I have even more. I'm pretty sure the use of these went into February as well. We'll find out when we turn, because I definitely did not use all of these in January. But January was a lot about buying and using some of this Bernay blanket yarn. Ooh. So around then I was working a little bit on some jackets from Pink Sheep Design. Oh, I cannot remember the name of that jacket. But I made one for me, one for each of my daughters. Where are you, pattern? It was the mini puff jacket. And I made all of them using Bernay blanket yarn. This is a yarn that, I mean, I like it, but it's not something I use a lot. I'm not usually big on the bulky yarn. They're hard to store, and while they work up really quick, your project gets very heavy quickly. Ooh, several of these were also used on my scrappy corner-to-corner crochet blanket, where I was using up the leftovers from those jackets. So, I mean, I'll use Bernay blanket yarn again, but it's not ever going to be a go-to for me. So in January, I brought in 26 skeins of yarn, and I used 5. So not off to a great start. In February, that was when I brought in 12 skeins of yarn, used 7. March, I brought in 22, used 6. I think you can definitely see where this is going to be going. I don't think I'm going to have a net 0 at the end of the year unless I really get moving. So in April, I brought in 20 skeins of yarn and 6 mini skeins, but I did use 22 skeins of yarn that month. So that was the month when I finished working on a sweater and a blanket. So that used up a lot of yarn, and I'd been working on those for a very, very long time. In May, I brought in 12 and used 2. So May was not a great month for finishing projects. June, I brought in 51 skeins of yarn, and I used 13. And I remember entering June and thinking, I'm going to finish this sweater, I'm going to finish this shawl, I'm going to finish this other shawl, and I will have so much coming out of stash. Well, I did not necessarily plan on buying so much. So, finishing up with this one real quick, I did a couple of calculations. Okay. Yeah, I did write them down. So, my yarn out so far year to date has been 55 skeins of yarn, which we're halfway through the year. That does seem like a decent amount of yarn used, especially when you consider that I use a lot of fingering weight yarn, and I do have a couple of, I do have some not finished projects. I brought in 143 skeins of yarn. I'm gonna have to like not buy any yarn at all if I want to have net 0. So that is not gonna happen. There's obviously other things that I can do, such as use a whole bunch more yarn. Already in July, I have yarn in, no yarn out yet. So we are not off to a low start there. So that was just the quick breakdown in here. I may look through here a little bit more later. I feel like I'm not as organized for this as I thought I was. Take a quick sip, and then I think what we'll do is look at the labels and then go back to just looking at some of the yarn. So I looked at, I used a whole bunch of Bernay blanket yarn. Let me see if I have any more labels for that in here. Alright, so this year so far I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 skeins of Bernay blanket yarn. So between the various jackets that I have made and the scrappy blanket, like, I do still have a little bit of this left hanging around, but not a lot. I have no real plans of buying any more of that anytime soon. The next big label I have in here is this Karen anniversary cake. So this was another bulky weight yarn, and I mean, they come in like these giant cakes. They're like comically big, and I actually have a full one and 2 half ones sitting in stash because 2 half ones were used to make a blanket. And then I have acquired another one this year, and I honestly may buy more of them if they come out in a nice color. I used one cake to make a nice throw blanket and sent it to my mom, so I can't show it to you today. But yeah, I would buy these again. It's an acrylic yarn, easy to take care of, and makes a decent sized throw blanket. You can easily, like the labels come with patterns, you can look up patterns. It's a nice one, and since there's extra like striping colors in a lot of them, it looks like you did a whole bunch of work, and then you can gift away or keep a easy to take care of blanket. Alright, so some of the next yarn I have in here is two Hobie cakes. So the Dahlia Halloween and the Black Friday cotton cake from Hobie. Both of these, you would have seen the project somewhat recently on the podcast if you've been watching. These both went into, oh no, it's not behind me. They both went into a shawl. It was a Granny Ripple shawl, and it just kind of striped itself. Nice big shawl. Absolutely loved working on it. The only problems I usually have with these kinds of cakes from Hobie is that they are very frequently not twisted very well, so hooks do get snagged on them, but it's not impossible. It's just something to be aware of. I do have more of these in my stash and plans to do more. I just, haven't gotten around to it yet. I do have one label from Pixie Yarn in here. In the color, it was from the color Absolutely Smitten. This came with my 2022 Advent calendar, and I used it to make the Advent sweater, which I've been mostly wearing around the house. I'm slightly afraid of wearing it to work, and I work with kids and it's wool, so I'm slightly afraid of it getting absolutely destroyed or even just covered in germs and it's harder to wash. But I absolutely loved it. I would buy more Pixie Yarn in the future. She is out of somewhere in England. I can't remember exactly where off the top of my head. But that would make it a little bit harder to get it. But, I already got some, so clearly she ships. So I have 5 labels right here from another one you would have seen very recently, Fangirl Fibers. And these labels all came from the A Woman's Places in the Resistance Star Wars Day set. And I used them on the shawl that's right here. I have been just kind of cuddling up in this while I sit here. Honestly, I may cuddle up in it for a little bit longer because there's just enough of a breeze. It's a wonderful shawl made with the Tubutaki pattern from Expression Fiber Arts. I have more Fangirl Fibers in my stash. I definitely will be buying more Fangirl Fibers. And then the other yarn that went into this, for this border, was Muse 2320. So this was the BFL Donegal sock, but I do also have a label in here from her Mockingbird 2-ply. So this one was in the color Fireside Flannel. I used that to make a pair of socks. Alright, sorry, starting to have a little technical difficulties. I did not charge everything properly. So, my camera battery just suddenly turned off. Muse 2320 is definitely one you will have seen me show yarn from before. I do get a monthly sock set subscription from her, so obviously I will buy more from her, and it's continuously coming in. She's a dyer and yarn shop owner in Minnesota, if I'm remembering correctly. And I love her work. It's absolutely gorgeous. I have another big label in here. So this is the We Heart Yarn Mega Ball. It was a number 3 light. So this one comes from Hobie, and it was another one of those almost comically big, like it was the size of my head. And I was able to use one ball of yarn, and I used them to make full-length joggers. So I actually don't wear them as much as I thought I would. Part of it is just because the weave was a little more open than I think I wanted it to be, and so I end up just not reaching for them as often as some of my other ones. But the pants themselves were very comfortable. I have a couple more of these mega balls that I will use for something. Maybe they might be a really good option for making like simple blankets or something, because again, it's very similar to the anniversary cake, where you have this huge bunch of yarn that's not going to have a whole bunch of ends to weave in, and then you can be done with something pretty quick. So not having a bunch of ends to weave in is always nice. Let me see if, oh, I cannot tell right now. All right, I'm going to reach for another one of these that I know is a big stack. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right, so I have 16 different labels from Wander acrylic yarn. Obviously, this is another one I reach for a lot. I've used these for a couple of different projects this year. So I have Foundry, Atlantis, Obsidian, Laguna, Midnight. What other colors are in here? A whole bunch of Midnight. So the Midnight was a deep blue I used to make a pullover raglan sweater. And I finished it just before the weather got warm, so I have not worn it a lot. I'm hoping to wear it more as it gets cooler. Midnight, snow, and snow. Okay, so all of these Midnight went into one sweater. The only thing I didn't like about that sweater, I think I made the sleeves just a titch too long, but also because the acrylic was very, very soft, I put a little bit of fabric glue on each knot where I joined them to try to make sure that they didn't come out. Since I did have one try to come out while I was knitting, and I think some of the places the glue was a little bit clumpy. So that's something I'm going to have to try to figure out to make the sweater more comfortable. These other colors, Foundry, Atlantis, Obsidian, Laguna, and Snow, these are all from my year-long mystery crochet along with alt knots for her Stitch and Scream blanket. So it is a square that comes out every single month. I have been using furls, and each month I'm doing a different color to go into the blanket. I am a little bit behind. I do not have June's block done because I kept starting it and it would be the right size, and then I would go and go and go, and then I'd look and somehow it seemed like it was growing out too. So that one has been in timeout. I need to restart it for the 4th time. But obviously this is another one that I do use this yarn. I have quite a bit of it in stash. I have a couple of projects that I would like to do using this yarn. And it's just one that, while it's not always my go-to, I do a lot, like fingering yarn a lot for a number 4 medium. Wander it's fairly inexpensive. There's a decent color palette, and it's a very, very soft acrylic, which acrylic doesn't always have a reputation of being soft. So the next big labels that I have in here, I have 3 labels from the Mandala Ombre. So let's see, it looks like I had the color Chi, and Harmony here. These all went into the other blanket that I have sitting here on my chair. I'm about to be so cozy right now. So this was using the pattern from Mama in a Stitch. And it was a Granny Ripple. I believe she called it the Sundance Ripple. And I did not use the same colors she did in hers. I just happen to have, I want to say this tealy color I had left over, and the blue from playing with my Addy machine. It was just a cheap yarn that I had used and then hadn't actually done with anything with. And then the purple was left over from making a sweater for my daughter. So it was just enough that it will fit right over my lap. It's a perfect little blanket to sit in a chair. It was a really easy pattern, and it was one where I think I spent maybe 2 weeks most working on it. I can actually look it up, which is part of why I have this here. Yeah, it was a very, very quick one. So when I made this, I started it on the 26th of March and I finished it on the 4th of April. And it used 676 grams of yarn. So, you know, nice, easy. It's very, very soft. The Mandala is self-striping. It's a number 4 medium. Where is it? Yeah, 100% acrylic. But it is another one. I remember, like, always thinking of acrylic yarn as super, super scratchy. They have definitely made some improvements. I'm not saying, like, I do think long-term I like wool more than acrylic, but there have been some improvements in acrylic yarn. They've done a lot better than they used to. All right, so I have a little bit left in here. I don't think I have any other massive groupings, just a few more labels. So right here, this was Crafts by Sarah Liz. This was a turquoise one-of-a-kind. So this is one I actually found in a little shop when I was visiting my brother, and it was a gorgeous turquoise. I used it to make a hat, and the hat was supposed to be for me, and then I tried it on, and it was like, nope, that does not look good on me, and one of my daughters has adopted it, but is not really wearing it. So this one is A Busy Life. This was Spring Dawn from the Sock Club. So this was a sock set that I got on Etsy. I am not a part of her sock club, but I did do a mystery grab. On Etsy, A Busy Life, apparently, I don't know if it's occasionally or always, but you can just go for a mystery yarn, and she will send you a mystery sock set. This was a really pretty pinks and purples and grays with a gray mini skein. Made some socks that I absolutely loved from those. I have some more of from her in my stash, and I will use more again. So Nicole C. Mendez, the Flamingo Soft Sock. This was a self-striping. I'm pretty sure I just recently finished these, and you would have just seen them if you've been watching the podcast. I just made a vanilla sock with these. I would definitely buy from her. Again, her soft sock, like, there's just some, it's almost like a thicker, squishier, but it's not. Knitted Niceties Nomad Sock. So this was Nana's Afghan and Knitted, and Silver Rainbow. I actually do have 2 labels of this one. These were used to make each of my daughters a pair of Pride socks. So one got crocheted Pride socks and the other one got knitted Pride socks. The knitted ones, actually, I recently pulled them out, and that yarn is semi back in stash, because the daughter I made them for tried them on, and then somewhat embarrassed was like, Mom, I just realized I don't like hand knit socks. They're very uncomfortable. She didn't like them, but she does love when I make her fingerless gloves. So it was like, well, if you're never going to wear it, we can pull out the socks, recycle the yarn, and put it back into something you will use. So those ones will be coming back on the needles at some point. I just have not started those yet. Sorry, I got distracted. So the next 2 ones I have are from Hobbii. I have Friends Extra Fine Merino. It was a superwash merino. It says on here the color was 119, but I remember it was a soft gray, and I paired it with the Super Kid Silk print that was the color 1013, and it was like kind of a sunset of purple, pink, and yellow. And these 2 were combined to make the Fire Pit mitts from Wool Needles Hands. I would make the pattern again. I'm not sure I would necessarily make them using this combination again. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't think I need fuzzy fingerless gloves all the time. I have a twist sock from Hedgehog Fibers, so that was an 80% BFL, 20% nylon. This was a color Potluck, and I remember these socks had this really strange pooling that I don't think I've ever seen on any socks I've ever done, where they were almost like half and half with the way the colors pooled. So one side had a whole bunch of like red fall looking colors, and the other side almost looked like the Aurora Borealis, and I have no idea how it happened. I do have more Hedgehog Fibers in my stash. I would buy from them again. I mean, they're a really well-known company. They've got a decent reputation, so I don't think that's surprising. Nomadic yarn. So I made, this was from the color Dark Academia in the Tweedy sock, and I made a pair of self-striping socks. I do have more Nomadic yarns in my stash as well. And the yarn worked up really, really well. It was pleasant to work with. The other Nomadic yarns I have are different bases, not the Tweedy sock, so we'll see which base I like best. I'm not sure what I used this one for. So this is the Hand-Dyed Happy Yarn Club from April. Most of my labels from this are down in my basket because this project is not completed yet, and they have been going into my Advertent shawl. That's a year-long mystery knit-along from Expression Fiber Arts. I do not remember using this for something different. This label may have just been separated from the other ones. I'll have to double check on that one. And then the last labels I have are 3 from the Teton Yarn Company. They were in the colors Last Light, Brenade, I never learned how to pronounce this one, and Purple Majesty, and they went into a curved shawl scarf. I know I have the pattern name right here. I did do some adjustments to this pattern. It was the Magic Spring Shawl from Kathy, and it was a garter stitch shawl, but these yarns had a zebra stripe to them, so I adjusted the pattern to put it into a stockinette stitch. Sorry, I shouldn't try to clean and talk at the same time. But I had adjusted it to go stockinette stitch to really show off that zebra stripe in the yarn. And I mean, I have since then purchased more from the Teton Yarn Company. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it. But they're definitely somebody who I would buy from again. I enjoyed working with that yarn. It worked up really well, and it was gorgeous dyeing. It is really fun to order stuff or find stuff from small indie dyers because you never really know exactly what you're going to get. So that was just kind of a breakdown of a lot of the yarns I used. I know that most of the projects I made them with I didn't have here. The ones I did are just here keeping me cozy. I like trying different kinds of yarns, but that doesn't mean that I never go back to ones I've used before. So most of those you'll probably see again. As I said, I have plans for more Fangirl Fibers. I'm always getting more Muse 2320 because I am getting the sock sets in. And I actually have more sock sets from her than I have time to knit at this point. I have plenty of exciting things from many of those that I really, really want to do. Obviously, as I said, Wander is one that I use a lot. I am working on one project that is ongoing for that, and there's another project I want to do. 2 projects I want to do? At least one more project I want to do. So you will see that one again. Some of them I'm not sure that you will. As much as I loved this blanket, I don't really think that like the mandala will ever be a staple. The Brenade blanket yarn, I'm sure I'll do something with again, but it's not one that I think I'm likely to just keep on hand at all times. So that is all the labels and numbers and all of that. So the next part I would like to get into is the exciting of, this is the yarn that I have in stash that I'm most excited to cast on. Some of it I'm anxiously waiting for one reason or another. But these are all things that I'm very excited about. All right, so with some of these yarns around me, this is sort of going to be a talk on projects I'm working on, but mostly projects that I want to work on and why I'm excited about them. So I'll start with the things down at my feet, and actually no, I'll start right here. So I actually have all 3 of these right here because I have plans for them. So this one is an Evergreen Yarn Studio. I just recently bought it, so you will have seen this recently. This was in the color 90 Kid, and it's a Pacific sock base, so it's 100% extra fine superwash merino, and it is a single ply. So I originally thought, you know, sock yarn. It's Pacific sock base, and it's so soft and so squishy, and it would absolutely make amazing socks. But with this single ply, I was very, very worried about how that would wear. It felt like the socks might wear out more easily, and that is not something I really want. So my current plan for this is a muscle burrow hat. I'm working on one slowly, also weirdly using Evergreen Yarn Studio yarn. And I think with how soft this is, it would be nice and cozy. I think the colors would look really well, and I don't think I'd be as worried about the single ply yarn breaking in a hat versus socks. I think the wear would be different. So this, it will not be cast on immediately, but when I'm done with the muscle burrow hat I'm working on, I am planning on caking this up and starting this one. This is another one that I am very excited about. This will be socks, so this is from Potions and Pearls. I just recently got it, so I spoke about it earlier. This is the Toadstool Cottage sock set, and it is another one that is just so, so soft. It is a superwash extra fine merino again. I love the vibe this caught. I really want to do just, honestly, I'm even thinking simple socks with, I don't know if I'd do heels, toes, and cuffs, or just cuff and toes. But I really just want it very simple, contrasting. I don't think that with the colors this has and how soft it is, it needs something fancy to make it good. I do have a couple of socks already going, so I'm trying to slow down a little bit and not have so many pairs of socks that I can't keep up with, which is part of why this one is also on hold. So this is You Knit, I Dye in the color I Love Love. It's a 85-25 superwash merino. And I actually really want to turn these into like some very skimmer socks, very short ones. I've made some skimmer socks before in the past, and the last ones I made are always like a little bit big and baggy, so I'd like to make another pair a little bit smaller. And I just feel like this as the sock and this as the little ribbing around it, be very cute, very excited about it, and I know it'll be a quick project. But again, I already have a couple pairs of socks going, so it's like, all right, focus, and then you can do these. So I'm thinking these will probably be the next socks and then the other one, so I can have the skimmer socks, hopefully while it's still warm enough that I want to wear the shorter shoes. Because taller socks make sense for boots, not skimmer socks. The other projects I have right down here. So, I have so much around me right now. Another one that I am excited about, so this is from Knitted Niceties. This was their Nomad Zebra Sock Base. It is an 80-20 in the color Confetti Party. This was a 2023 local yarn shop day exclusive that I went down to my local yarn shop and got. It's just, it's a very subtle rainbow on the white. I've been thinking socks. I even kind of thought maybe doing Crazy Sock Ladies pattern Rhinebeck roomies for it, so that there's a little bit of something going on, but with the zebra striping and the subtle color, I'm not even sure you need a pattern for it. There is technically a chance that if I don't get this into socks, it'll turn into a muscle burrow, because it's another one of those where it's subtle enough. I think I think it would work well on just a plain stockinette. Like, with the zebra striping and the subtle colors, I don't think that it needs a fancy pattern for these colors. So I'm very excited about this one, and it's been one that I've been wanting to do, but I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with it. On local yarn shop day, I did also buy this little set. Oh, I'm not sure if I said it was Knitted Niceties dyed that. So this is a set that I got. It has a mane of Leo and Roxy in the color Rhapsody, and then these minis are from Knitted Niceties in the colors Marigold, Tannenbaum, Peony, Dandelion, and Poppy. And they are all part of a set to make a shawl. And I think this is kind of like a smaller, almost scarf shawl. But my plan was to do this pattern Wild Ride from Aspen Knits. And this is just one of those where I've been doing like larger shawls like this. And so I just haven't quite gotten around to casting this one on. It's not necessarily going to be one of those that I am instantly doing. It may be one that I start doing when it gets a little colder and I wish I already had it. But I think the rainbow and everything is going to be very, very lovely. I'm very excited about that. And in the middle of winter, that pop of color is going to be nice and fun. These three came, as I said, I have more Fangirl fibers in my stash. So these three were my quarterly subscription, and it was Muppet Show themed. So I have the color Kermit the Frog here, Waka Waka Fozzie Bear, and Kissy Kissy, which is, of course, Miss Piggy. Now, when I was ordering these, I had a thought of turning the three of them into something together, and these colors do look really, really good together. But since then, I've kind of realized that I want to use them. I have no idea what pattern would look well with them. Like, I don't know what I would turn these three into. Best I can think of is a shawl, but I don't really know what shawl would use these three colors well. And I finally just decided, you know what, I kind of just want to do 3 pairs of socks with them. And I'd kind of like to get a rainbow contrast for Kermit the Frog here. So it can be, you know, Kermit and the Rainbow Connection. I'm thinking a red, maybe even like a red and white speckled, so it kind of looks polka dotted for Fozzie Bear. And I mean, for Kermit, I may even just do like the stripes of a rainbow in a striped sock. For Fozzie, I was kind of thinking of like the contrast, but I wanted that red and white so it looks kind of like his bow tie. And then for Miss Piggy, I mean, my easy go-to would be like a bright pink, but I'm not 100% sure exactly what I would do. This one may take a little bit longer, but I feel like I can kind of theme these out and then have 3 pairs of Muppet socks, and I would like that even better than one shawl that I don't know when I'll find a pattern for. The other thing that I have in this basket is a shirt I am excited to cast on, but I have not done, so I really just have some yarn in here. I just very recently showed it. It is from Expression Fiber Arts, the Luster Sport, so a 50 Superwash Merino, 50% Lyocell, in the color Silvery Seas. Expression Fiber Arts released a pattern. I picked it up when it was like a free weekly pattern, and it is for, I believe you say it, Panopia? But it is a stockinette bottom, lace top, short sleeved shirt. I think it would look so lovely, and it'd be something that I could layer under when the winter came around, which, based on the fact that I haven't started it yet, is probably when it's going to be done. I want to cast that on soon, but I have not yet. I'm kind of in a somewhere between catching up on other projects and look at that shiny object phase. So I really want to cast that on soon. I don't want that yarn to just sit there in a bag. which as I'm talking about some of these I'm excited about, most of them are unfortunately still in that just sitting there waiting for them to start phase. The last yarn that I'm super excited about, I just spoke briefly about it a couple of days ago on the podcast. I have done a little casting on for it and caking up. This is Cascade Heritage. Let me see. Yeah, Cascade Yarns Heritage. It's a 75 superwash merino, 25% nylon. I have a lot of it. And right here I have some caked up because I just got started on it. And this, my original thought was one big blanket, and it may still be one, but I'm actually leaning more towards 2 shawls. And this is going to be study scores. So I'm kind of thinking of it as my data blanket. I'm making it a decent size because the length will be decently long. I'm trying to go through the first little bit of data that I have to put into the blanket. It's being done very, very similar to a temperature blanket, where each row is one test that I have taken and the percentage that I took on it as I get ready for a certification test. I did end up skipping over 2 different yarns when I was ordering them. Like, I picked out all of the yarns I needed, ordered them, and managed to miss 2. And unfortunately, one of them will be row 5. So I started it last night, but I cannot get very far. And this is one that it's very, very exciting to me. The yarn in and of itself is, I mean, it's a nice, there's lots of colors. It's soft, but it's not, it's the project I'm excited about more than the yarn. Sometimes it's the yarn I'm excited about more. This one is definitely the project I am excited about. I think that this is going to be a very beautiful way to commemorate a very long process of going to school, collecting field work, studying and studying and studying and studying. And honestly, when I'm done with this, I'm going to be studying. So I really do feel like this blanket will be a wonderful and beautiful way to commemorate that. And while the yarn itself is beautiful, this is one where the yarn is going to be made special by the project I have selected for it, not special yarn that I need to find a project special enough for. All right, so thank you for sitting here through a rambly bonus episode as I talked about some of the yarns that I have used this year, some of the yarns that I will use again, some of the yarns that I have purchased and am excited about using but haven't used yet, and some of the yarns that I just like, even if I don't entirely know what I'm doing with them yet. I'm absolutely excited about all of the projects that I'm working on, and now I need to go and get to those, and as I mentioned with my data blanket there, some more studying to do. So I hope everybody who has a holiday weekend right now is enjoying it, and for anybody who is not enjoying a holiday weekend, I hope you are having a wonderful day and have some time to include a little extra making into your week. Thank you, everybody.